Childhood has changed since I was a wee man. In the 21st century, with the proliferation of consoles and at-home technology, gone are the days of arcades where crowds would gather around the kid breaking the record for the high score on the game of the day. These days, kids can compete from the comfort of their own homes. And such has been the rapid increase in online gaming that many kids dream of being a professional gamer, with gaming teams becoming big business. And being good at a certain game can open doors that never existed years ago. For my lad, it was Fortnite, and wanting to be an in touch and involved dad, that meant that I played the game a fair bit myself. There was a technical term for my kind of player among the young folk, and that term was shit. I admit it, I was rubbish. But it meant a lot to my boy, so it meant a lot to me. I was admittedly crap, but to my untrained mind, my boy was prodigiously good. Yet he paled in comparison to the top players who defied belief in the things they could do and how quickly they could do them. But rather than just being a hobby, these players could earn sponsorships, and their live streams would be watched by tens of thousands of people. As I say, big business. Being good at a game was now a passport to earnings, tournaments, and the respect of their peers. But with such fame at a young age comes stress. Stress that can be tough for young minds to navigate. It is a brave new world, but it can also be a cruel one. In today's case, a young man was fiendishly talented at a certain game, and this allowed him entry into tournaments and the upper echelons of that particular gaming world. But somewhere along the way within this man's psyche, something went wrong. And one of these tournaments would become famous for all the wrong reasons. Perhaps unsurprisingly, in the world of true crime, we're going to Florida and to the year 2018 to look at the tragic case of David Katz and how his world imploded. This is Murder of Crows.
Say that you're ready, but you won't
Madden Football is a video game series produced by EA Sports. It revolves around the sport that Americans call football. Other nationalities, including Brits, call American football, and what I personally call poor man's rugby. Within the world of video games, Madden, named for famed football coach John Madden, the Madden franchise is a powerhouse. Along with the FIFA games, also developed by EA Sports in partnership with the global football regulator FIFA, Madden is one of the most played sports games in the history of gaming. Even back in 2013, the game franchise had generated over $4 billion in sales. So understandably, anyone good enough at such a widespread game is held in high regard. But it can also lead to obsession, with kids desperate to become among the best players of the game. But in order to decide exactly who is the best, tournaments have become similarly big business, as esports has become a thing in its own right. With relatively low overheads and access to similar income streams as regular sports, it can become profitable reasonably quickly. One young man with dreams of making it in the esports world of Madden Football was David Katz. He was born in 1993 to Elizabeth and Richard Katz, and had an older brother, Brandon, who was 4 years his senior. Elizabeth was a toxicologist with the Food and Drug Administration, often better known as the FDA. And Richard worked as an engineer for NASA. So they were clearly high achievers. But when Brandon was 16 and David was 12, their parents began what would be an acrimonious divorce. And much of their ongoing disagreement was over David's mental health, and in particular the treatment of his conditions. Conditions that David's father, Richard Katz, did not believe even existed. When David was 13, the principal of Glenelg Country School in Maryland recommended that David not return to school until he had straightened things out. But his father insisted he continue to attend. This is all according to court papers. Then a month later, Richard Katz opposed his ex-wife's attempt to get an injunction and prevent him from having access to any medical records of the children in the future. The father claimed that she had diagnosed their sons with affective disorders, alleging whether or not children suffer from an affective disorder is a matter to be determined by a mental health expert. There is no evidence that Elizabeth Katz is a mental health expert. David has informed me that he does not want to take the psychiatric drugs. They make him feel worse and is making efforts to refuse them. I was unaware of David's efforts to avoid taking these drugs until I was informed of them by David. I have not seen evidence of schizophrenia in David Katz. Elizabeth Katz purchased medications for David after a single visit with the prescribing doctor, during which the doctor was given information that was not correct or was significantly exaggerated. I believe that Ms. Katz is not acting in the actual best interests of the children, and that her conduct is inappropriate and suggestive of a possible mental disorder. So the upshot of all of this was confusion over whether David had an ongoing mental health issue or not. Whatever the situation, against this background of legal struggles and possible mental health concerns, David retreated into the world of gaming, and in particular the series of Madden games. But even while living with his mother and often being medicated against his father's wishes, there were signs that the young man was taking his gaming obsession too far, including a refusal to go to school or even to bathe. His hair would very often go unwashed for days, Elizabeth wrote in a divorce filing from 2007, with her also saying, "When I took his gaming equipment controllers away, so he couldn't play at 3 or 4 in the morning, I'd get up and find that he was just walking around the house in circles." David was known to argue with his mother repeatedly over the use of the family television when he was a kid. The two used to call the police on each other over trivial matters, such as watching too much TV. In 2007, David called the cops on his mother for being unfair and taking away his video games. On one occasion, Elizabeth Katz locked away his controllers in her bedroom, and he punched a hole through the door to try to get at them. In 2010, she dialed 911 and told a dispatcher that David was abusing her by coming home late following a visitation with his dad and assaulting her while trying to gain control of the TV's cable cord. According to David, police were called to the family's home in Maryland roughly 20 times. Among this domestic chaos, David's abilities in online gaming grew, and he became proficient in the Madden video game. He moved away from home to attend the University of Maryland, but was ultimately unable to obtain a degree. But during that time, his Madden obsession never dimmed, and he would do well in online tournaments, where he would be known by the nicknames of bread or sliced bread. When he was living in Maryland, he translated his abilities at the Madden game into esports success in 2017, when he won a Madden tournament that was hosted by the Buffalo Bills, pushing him even higher in the world of top Madden players and earning him a $10,000 prize.
Zero emotion as he plays in a tense tournament against other professional gamers. 24-year-old Katz was an elite player of the video game Madden NFL. Katz was known by the tag name Bread.
It's a touchdown, and Bread takes the lead early on here in the second quarter.
He was also known as Mr. Sliced Bread and Ravens champ. He wore the same blank expression whether he won,
really strong, impressive victory over,
or whether he lost. Notice no eye contact, even when a winning competitor tries to shake his hand.
But when he attended the GLHF, or Good Luck Have Fun Bar, in Jacksonville, Florida on the 26th of August 2018 for a high-profile Madden 2019 tournament, things did not go the way that anyone expected. The Madden NFL 19 Classic qualifier was the first in a series of events that would culminate in a main event in Las Vegas in the October. And so in Jacksonville Landing at the GLHF Game Bar, which was an entertainment and shopping complex nestled on the St. Johns River in the heart of the city, David Katz had travelled from Baltimore, Maryland to compete in the tournament. And there were around 140 people at the venue, which included participants and also interested onlookers. And as well as this, the tournament was being live streamed on the Twitch platform.
You are not going to see much emotion from our guy Brett. This dude is a man David Katz keeps to himself, He's a man of business. He's not here for the experience and to go out, this, that, and the third. He's not here to make friends. He's all business. He's focused, and to even get him to open up to talk to you about anything, it's like pulling teeth, man.
But Katz's progress in this tournament was derailed by a loss quite early on in the tournament. He refused to shake the hand of the person that had beat him, and he immediately left the venue. But they had not seen the last of David Katz quite yet. Because whether fueled by this defeat or just in a mental health crisis, Katz returned to the venue at around 1:30 p.m. with 2 handguns that he legally bought in Maryland, and these guns were in a Baltimore Ravens backpack. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a .45 caliber handgun. He dropped the backpack to the floor and began shooting. First with one hand on the weapon, and then with both hands as people ran to escape.
Got a lot of good games going on.
It's a
today.
lot. It's going to be hard to get them on stream. It's a lot.
It's not a tough out today. Excuse me, not an easy out. Oh.
What are you shooting with? Oh!
Just 20 seconds after he started firing, he shot himself in the head and collapsed, dead. In the chaos, 2 gamers, 22-year-old Elijah Clayton from California and known as True or True Boy, and Taylor Robertson, aged 27, from West Virginia, known by the gaming handle Spot Me Please. These 2 men were killed. It appears that Clayton may have been the main target, as he appeared to have a red dot from a laser sight on his chest immediately prior to the shooting starting. Clayton was shot in the head and chest, and he died in his gaming chair. Robertson had attempted to flee, with a bullet entering his back and exiting through his chest. 10 other people were wounded by gunfire in the 20-second spree. The immediate aftermath of the shooting was, rather unsurprisingly, confusion and chaos. After receiving word of an active shooter at the venue, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office did not know if there were additional gunmen after one suspect was confirmed dead at the scene. It was later confirmed that Katz was the only perpetrator. They also confirmed that Katz had 2 handguns, one of which was not used, that had been legally purchased in Maryland. In addition, the .45 caliber handgun was fitted with an aftermarket laser sight attached to the trigger guard. EA Sports, the company behind the Madden franchise, cooperated with the investigation, and the incident was classed as a single criminal act as opposed to an act of terrorism.
So here's what we know. So this afternoon there was a Madden 19 tournament event at Chicago Pizza at the Jacksonville Landing. At 1:34 p.m., 911 calls came in stating that people had been shot inside the Chicago Pizza. 2 minutes later, at 1:36, officers were on scene at the Chicago Pizza inside the landing. So there were 3 deceased individuals at the scene, one of those being the suspect who took his own life. There were 9 victims transported by JFRD to area hospitals. 7 of those had gunshot wounds. In addition, there were 2 additional gunshot victims that self-transported themselves to local hospitals. I'm happy to report that they are all in stable condition at this time. The single suspect in this case is a white male, and this is pending confirmation, but we believe the suspect to be 24-year-old David Katz from Baltimore, Maryland. And the FBI is assisting us with that leg of the investigation in Baltimore. So we know that the suspect used at least one handgun to commit this act, and we are working again with our partners at ATF on that aspect of the investigation.
A gunman opened fire at a video game tournament in Jacksonville, Florida Sunday, killing at least 4 people and wounding 10 others. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office said the suspect, a white male, was dead at the scene. Emergency crews flooded the Jacksonville Landing, a waterfront dining and shopping site downtown, which has now been cleared. The shooting happened during a regional qualifier for the Madden 19 online game tournament. The tournament was being live-streamed when shots rang out. The Los Angeles Times reports the shooter was a gamer who was competing in the tournament and lost. Citing messages from another player in the room, the Times said the gunman appeared to target several victims before killing himself. Reuters could not immediately confirm that account of events. Madden 19 maker Electronic Arts called it a horrible situation and said it was working with authorities.
There have been suggestions that Katz's apparent targeting of Clayton was not due to the particular tournament that day, but rather was an ongoing feud between the 2 gamers. One gamer stated that Katz did not shoot Elijah Clayton because he lost a game at a Madden tournament, but instead he believed Clayton was specifically targeted because he, Clayton, continually picked on Katz. And it was for reasons of being socially awkward. And this was said in a report completed by homicide detective R.J. Reeves. Another gamer who was a US Air Force staff sergeant is quoted in the report saying Katz had a dislike for Clayton that began years earlier, when Clayton bought a book that Katz had created and posted it online for anyone to read without having to buy it. This staff sergeant said Katz also had reported that Clayton later beat him at a tournament where both men later called a taxi to leave, but said Clayton slammed the cab door and left without him. He said that Katz expressed further hatred towards Clayton following the taxi incident. But with Katz having taken his own life, we are left with what amounts to speculation and guesswork. In the aftermath of the shootings, participants and sponsors took to social media to express safety concerns, any injuries, and their recollections of the incident. Electronic Arts, EA, the parent company of EA Sports, released a statement saying its most heartfelt sympathies went out to the families of the victims and those who were injured, and that its focus, EA's focus, was on those affected and on aiding law enforcement. The game publisher would later cancel the 3 remaining Madden Classic qualifier tournaments in order to re-evaluate safety protocols for future live events. EA donated $1 million as charity for the victims of the shootings. Organisers of other esports tournaments, such as the League of Legends Championship Series and Evolution Championship Series, known as EVO, announced that they would take additional security measures at their upcoming events to protect the safety of their exhibitors and attendees in the wake of the shooting. The event also raised concern about increasing security at other esports events in the future to levels similarly seen in other professional sporting events. ATF agents said that Katz legally purchased both weapons within the month of August in Baltimore from a licensed gun dealer. When buying firearms, federal law requires purchasers to disclose whether they had ever been involuntarily committed to a mental institution. But there is no federal requirement for psychiatric hospitals or courts to report involuntary commitments to the FBI, so that information can be added to the database used for background checks. Additionally, Maryland law requires firearms purchasers to waive their right to medical privacy, so that a state agency can discern whether they suffer from a mental disorder, have a history of violent behavior, or have been confined for at least 30 consecutive days to a mental health facility. David Katz's parents' custody filings do not indicate whether their son's hospital stint was voluntary, but the records do show that both of David's hospitalizations were for periods of less than 30 days, meaning that Maryland law would not have prohibited him from owning firearms. Something of a loophole there. On August the 26th, 2023, a man shot and killed 3 people at a Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida, with investigators stating that they believed the date was specifically chosen due to being the 5th anniversary of David Katz's shooting incident. So that was the case of a gaming obsession and potential mental health issues combining to create a tragedy that no one could have realistically predicted. Yes, David Katz had been erratic in the past, but it seemed that he had found his calling in life. No one knew that this qualifying tournament could have caused a man with a hitherto little known resentment for a fellow gamer to finally snap and launch a fatal attack that would leave 2 men dead. This video is of course dedicated to these 2 men. The world of gaming can be insidious and toxic, and bullying and verbal abuse are often rife. But no one deserves to die for being an arsehole. 2 lives were senselessly taken, and it is another example of gun violence that we see all too often in the 21st century. My heart goes out to the families of these men. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. I'm Steve. This bumbling lummox is Samson, and we will see you when we see you.
Say that